Good afternoon, or morning, or evening, wherever you join in from. I'm glad to welcome each of us to this program on creative leadership and innovation. I will be your host this afternoon. My name is we'll be talking about, this afternoon, we're going to be talking about creative leadership. What does that mean? And I think we have to put it in context. The creative leadership creative leadership and innovation webinar for this afternoon is sponsored by BROOT Consulting. BROOT Consulting is a management consulting firm that focuses on innovation, strategy, and research. To put some context behind this seminar today, we are going to be talking about creative leadership and its critical importance in driving innovation and the high performance. You all know that the world is changing, and the world is changing very fast, to the point that is either, I always say that individuals or organizations will be in any of the three categories. As an organization, is either you are an innovator, or you are an imitator, or maybe idiots. And what does that actually mean? Is either you are innovating and you are the head of solving problem and providing solution. Or it could also be that, you are very good at imitating what others are doing and you are able to scale it. Or maybe you just sit on the fence and expecting miracles, to happen. So where do you belong this afternoon? At every layer of each organization are leaders. Today we talk about innovative organization. We talk about highly admired organization. And at each layer of this organization, they are human beings, they are leaders. So what makes organizations are the people. And how can you, as an individual, be seen to be an innovator? Today we have an amazing panel of speakers, and we hope we are going to gain from their wealth of experience. To begin, I need to let you know that I'm very excited and really super excited to be here because of our speaker. And I'll be introducing them. The first person is going to be Tope. Tope Akinwumi is the Uber country manager for Nigeria. He was previously with Kobo 360 as the head of marketplace and analytics. Before this, he was assistant manager in the disruptive innovation and emerging technology at PwC Nigeria. Tope is an award-winning consultant with several years of professional experience, and he's been privileged to advise multinational companies on complex and challenging situations to accelerate growth and create efficiency. Tope, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Doctor. How are you today?
I'm great. Glad to have you here.
Thank you very much. Looking forward to a productive session.
Also, we have with us Deji Lana. Deji Lana is an innovative technology executive, a co-founder and executive director and chief technology officer at SeamlessHR. SeamlessHR is Africa's biggest HR and payroll software company. And he sits on board of DataMax Group, the former GT Bank registrar. In 2020, he co-founded Insidify company, African leading social job aggregator platform. And under his leadership, the company had over 300 million jobs, 400,000 plus CVs, and processed over 70,000 new CVs annually. He had over 20 years experience in software development, creative, client-centric tools with value-driven solution. Deji has always demonstrated proven leadership experience, ranging from evaluating technology to developing niche products for bootstraps and startups. I'm glad to have you here this afternoon, Deji.
Hi, good afternoon. It's my pleasure to be here, and I'm looking forward to the session also.
All right, thank you so much. All right, we have Andrew Missingham. Andrew Missingham is joining us from UK. Andrew just got his visa to Nigeria. He will be coming to Nigeria. He will be coming to Nigeria and spend a few days before he moves to some African countries. Andrew has an uncanny experience in creative strategy, business planning, communicating complex stuff in a simple way. He's a co-founder of B+A UK, an organization that helps organizations to grow, innovate, and change. He specializes in finding solutions to the problem facing cultural, for-profit, and social businesses. He works across disciplines and industry with a focus on digital, youth, and emerging culture. What he does best, he devises and delivers insightful research, leading to the robust strategy. Andrew, good afternoon. It's a pleasure to have you here.
A pleasure to be here, Dr. Olukunle. Lovely to be here. Lovely to meet you, Deji and Tope as well. Beautiful.
So without much ado, we are going to go into our program for the day. And to begin with, we talk about creative leadership. Creative leadership. I saw your hands up. Udeme, please, can you send a chat to us, please? So, and to start this afternoon, we have some foundational questions. Leadership is very important, and I will want Andrew to start that. Leadership is very important. However, what is creative leadership? And how critical do you think creative leadership is to organization?
Well, it's a great question to start on, Doctor. I think the first thing we need to do is define creativity. I think leadership is a more common set of definitions, and I'll come to those in a minute, but creativity is a slippery animal. And I think that a good definition of creativity is the process of having original ideas that have value. And I'd love that to be my definition, but it's actually Sir Ken Robinson, one of the great creative educationists who died, unfortunately, last year. And so whilst leadership is about setting a direction and then responding to inputs, what I believe sets creative leadership apart or aside is excelling in adaptability and novelty. So the ability, this is creative leadership. Creative leadership is the ability to dynamically absorb new information and habits and techniques, and then to change your leadership style or your leadership pace, the outputs, and do all of that as the inputs and the context change. So it's creative leadership, I think, in some ways could be called dynamic, changeable leadership.
Oh, thank you, Andrew.
That was my moment. I dropped the mic at that moment.
Okay, I saw that. I saw that. All right.
Do the hand movement.
Okay, thank you for that. I love the fact that you talk about adaptability, which is very, very crucial to survive in this continuous, constant disruptive economy. There's no doubt about that. If you are not adaptable, that organization is just going to die. So I like that part. Tope, if you want to talk about creative leaders, what do you think sets creative leaders apart? Because today you look at organizations like Google, like Apple, Microsoft, what set them apart? And do they have to necessarily come from a tech company?
No, I do not think so. So we can define creative leadership, and I think I will just start there. I agree fully with Andrew. But for me, I will just draw three, or four circles, right? The first circle would be on identifying what human needs are. And when Nigeria, there are a ton of them. You have needs, internet access, water supply, electricity, transportation. But being able to deep dive into those specific needs and understand what drives it and what you can do to change that. That would be on one circle. The other one would be looking for solutions. Thank you very much, Andrew. So think about it like a Venn diagram. So those four circles would meet like a Venn diagram. So identifying the problem. Number two is identifying the solutions to those problems and going past the obvious answers. Right? Of course, problems to transportation will probably be to put more vehicles on the road. Or can you do something more innovative there? Can you, do you want to explore waterways? Do you want to start, do you even want to keep people in their houses? And of course, the Uber way, do you want to merge the physical and digital world together to create a solution that is innovative? The third circle will be around courage. And I think it is very important when we're talking about creative leadership. The courage to take that solution and forge ahead with it. I think a lot of leaders today are scared, like scared of failure, failure of what people might say, failure of failure of the unknown, right? So understanding understanding the problem, understanding the solution, and having the courage to forge ahead on that. And the fourth circle would be around storytelling. So you can have all of those three circles and not be able to inspire people around you to follow your lead, right? So being able to tell the story in a way that inspires action from your followers, of course, in the context of leadership, would be great and would be critical to success. So when I define the attributes of leaders, of creative leaders, can you still all hear me?
Yes.
Good. So when I define
yes, please. Yes, please.
I'll probably start with saying somebody that would be able to identify unique insights into human problems, somebody that is courageous, and somebody that can tell a story in a proper way. Like the act of storytelling is something that is important. And I do not think that creative leaders come from tech companies. Like different organizations now have creative leaders. I was reading something recently, and one of the most important skills of leaders today is creativity, right? Creativity beats being able to influence people. Creativity beats being humble. So creativity, I think in the survey done by leaders has about a 70% weight when you're choosing a leader, right? So very important. The world or the environment that we operate in today is fast changing, right? What you meet on Monday is different from what is obtainable on Tuesday, right? So being able to seek unique ways to solve problems is one of the is very important when leading a company.
Thank you so much. Being able to solve problem in a creative way is extremely important, if you want to survive. And I do hope that our listeners, are listening to us. The kind of skill that you need today to distinguish yourself, has been told, is creative leadership. And I like the aspect of storytelling. And I could see that Andrew started drawing something about storytelling. We do advise clients, talked about storytelling, that for each of us that want to get to the next level, that want our ideas to be bought, that want our listener to listen to us and key into what we are doing. Storytelling is a skill that we must develop. I will come to you, Andrew, but Deji, let me quickly take you on that. You are the Chief Technology Officer, and I know that you guys are doing amazingly well where you are at SeamlessHR. How has storytelling, how has empathy helped you build a robust product, get buy-in from your investors, get buy-in from the customer, get buy-in, even from the employees?
Yeah. Thank you very much for that question. And I was actually going to piggyback on that, even if you asked me a different question, because that's very important when it comes to creative leadership. And in SeamlessHR, let me use us as an example, especially when we are into tech, selling to HR companies and also leading a set of employees, maybe in the age bracket of tech, young people. Storytelling has always been one of the tools and one of the tools of innovation and creativity we put into our products. So there was a time when we were growing, maybe as part of leadership, where I was part of the sales team, also go out in selling the product before I now wore my hats as the major chief technology officer, where I sit back on the back benches more. But when we sell our products to intending customers, we get more buy-in and we get them super interested when they see what problem this is solving, not just another tool to automate that process, not just another tool to make this process faster, but when they see the story around it, how we came about the requirement gathering, how we built that product, how we, and the effects it has had, and the effects it promises to have on the clients. And let's leave the customer, let's come back to the team, where leadership actually is. So when we have an employee, and if you ask most of our employees, and what they would say is they love about the company is the culture and creative and the leadership that you have in the organization. And this has been through storytelling, where your work, how you work, what you do, and you put more meaning into your work, because there's some aspect of storytelling where you are able to say, oh, as a, let me give an example, as a software quality assurance engineer, as a software tester, you are able to tell a story on how important your work is, because someone might be like, oh, the developers are the most important, the sales managers are the most important, but quality also, it's super important in delivering that product. So every employee or everybody in the organization see a part that they play in the organization and see how important it is. So when you ask in the organization, for example, that's in SeamlessHR, what's the most important department? Who are the most important? Everybody will raise up their hand, because they all feel they are super important. They feel they feel the effects, even to the admin guy, even to someone who is a receptionist, because the storytelling helps the person see how you are the first face, first point of contact to the customers or someone visiting the organization, how they can read the culture, how you imbibe trust and hope in that customer to know that, okay, I'm entering an organization that I'm sure would solve my problem, and they apply creativity and innovation in actually solving the problem. And maybe to add a little bit more in terms of creative leadership and how we've applied it is, one, we provide the necessary tools, the necessary environment for those employees to thrive, which speaks to innovation. And to piggyback on what Tope and also Andrew said in terms of creative leadership, is that in every organization, or maybe every type of leader, some see themselves as the strategic leaders, some see themselves as the operations guy, like, in strategy, I just want to operate, I know how to make processes, which is not just in technology. It might be as a CEO, it might be as a CMO, as a salesperson. But in every part of those leadership or leadership role, creativity is super important, because you need to sit back at every point in time to look at what you're doing and look at how to apply innovation into what you're doing, especially in our climate, that is Africa or the world as in general, because a leadership style that might have worked 3 years ago, or an approach or a process that might have worked 3 years ago, might not work now because of several changing conditions, change in internet penetration, and how people perceive things. So storytelling is super important, and other aspect of creative leadership also.
Thank you so much. Andrew, let me come to you. I want you to talk about storytelling a bit. How can I, as a professional, develop storytelling skill? And as you provide answers to that, innovation seems to be a tough call. Many people will tell you that I'm not creative, maybe I'm not innovative. Who are those people? What do we need to do to become creative, to become, innovative, regardless of your background, regardless of your industry?
Okay, well, there's two parts of that question, and they're both interesting. So let's deal with them side by side. First one, storytelling, and I think it's really important to remember the second half of what Tope said. It wasn't just storytelling, it was storytelling that inspires action. And that actually is a test of the effect of the story. In other words, has it gone beyond you and landed with someone else so they owned it? Because that also goes to what Deji's saying about basically when someone believes that the story is theirs and they're the most important character, they're the hero of the story, frankly, whatever department they're in, right? That's when you really know that that story has landed. In terms of how you become a better storyteller, frankly, like everything in life, and creativity is included, it can be learned. Storytelling, there are some excellent resources and techniques. I think my favorite book on storytelling is called Into the Woods by John York, and I'll put that in the chat. Into the Woods and York is spelled with an E on the end, Into the Woods. It's great. It's very interesting. And what it does is it talks about the fact that storytelling is a human need. It's how humankind is formed, from stories in the Bible to stories in the Quran to stories in the Torah. It's how we communicate and how we remember. We tell stories. It's how we learn. And therefore, this idea of perfecting the techniques that make storytelling effective around, there's another book called Made to Stick by Chip and Dan Heath, which is very good, which is about basically you make things short, you make them unexpected, you make it concrete, you make it credible, you make it emotional, those kind of stories. If you combine those things, the storytelling will stick. And as I say, there are formulae. Yeah, I'll write the book titles, Nena, in the chat in a moment. Those things really help. The other thing, of course, is to study where stories are right at the top. Just look at films. Look at, study what is the structure that gets you through it, whether it's a romance, whether it's a horror film, whether it's a, whatever it might be. You basically, if you start to understand the sources where the story is at the top, that'll help. The next one, of course, to your point, Doctor, is that people say, I'm not creative at all. Now, on this, I actually, to my point about storytelling, I believe that creativity is innately human. It can definitely be taught and nurtured. And actually, creativity is more likely forgotten than it is absent. I was sitting in the Nigerian High Commission this morning, and of course there are children there, right? And there's a little girl behind me, and she's basically got a doll, and she's telling a story to the doll. She's basically inventing this crazy world, and she's inside this world. And then there's another boy, and he's got an iPad and he's drawing it. And if you said to the little boy, "Are you any good at drawing?" He'd go, "Yeah, I can draw anything in the world. Tell me what to draw, I'll draw it." You get to a certain age and you forget. Maybe education gets in the way, but you forget that creativity. Joseph Campbell's hero's journey that Mark Booth just put in there, that is also a kind of foundational element. The book for that one is called A Hero with a Thousand Faces. And basically, again, there are structures and techniques that you can learn, but creativity, very often it's about giving yourself the permission. I do a portraiture class every Saturday. I sit and there's a person in front and I draw their portrait. And how I got to be better is I stopped trying to be good. That's how I got to be better. How I tapped into my creativity, stopped trying to be good. The moment I stopped trying to be good, I became better.
That's very profound. Now, let me come to you, Tope. Thank you so much, Andrew, for the insight on the creativity and the storytelling and what have you. Tope, from your own background, how do you think we can filter, creativity down in an organization? You are the country manager for Uber in Nigeria. How do you get your team to believe in your vision?
Thank you very much.
How do you carry them along?
Thank you very much. Right. So I think it depends on the culture of the organization, right? And I'll talk briefly about Uber before I talk about how we encourage the culture of innovation, right? Uber is basically innovation, right? The idea of Uber was developed in during a snowy period in France in 2008, and that's just constantly been what has kept the company going, pushing from being in one city in the world to being in over 10,000 cities now, right? So our goal here and our main vision is to reimagine how people transport themselves and how they get things, right? It's in our DNA, it's in our blood. I'll tell you that I go to bed every day. I wake up, and that's what gets me pumping, right? And it's just around the organization, whether top level management, mid level, and then entry level staff. So it's not hard, I think that like one thing to encourage innovation in the company is to reward trying new things other than punishing failure. And I think that is what we do well here in Uber, right? I'll tell you that like I've spent 1 year in Uber Nigeria. I joined 15th of February last year. A number of things I've done in Uber in a year has been mind-blowing, right? From launching Uber Connect, which is a two-wheeler delivery product in Lagos here, to launching Uber Moto, and then to also launching Uber Go. So there are lots of products that we've launched, and I'm only talking about the ones that have succeeded. There are lots of products that have failed too, right? So I think that like we don't pride ourselves here on getting it right all the time. It's a culture of experimenting, understanding that there's a problem, always reimagining how to fix things, reinventing ourselves, disrupting internally, and ensuring that we do it in a collaborative way. So right now, like I'm in the office with say a couple of like top level and mid-level staff. And then every Friday we go all the way down to the mainland and sit with like the entry-level staff to have what we call a roundtable session. Something you would notice is because of the information overload, right? I'm sitting here and I'm processing all of the information. It's hard, and sometimes you might miss out on unique ways of solving things, right? People at the entry level, they interact with your product. They also interact with the real life, and they have less information. So it's easier for them to get innovative solutions out and churn that out on a consistent basis. So if you want to get fresh ideas, I think it's something that you need to encourage in your organization. So yeah, basically.
Beautiful.
Cool.
Thank you so much. Deji, let me come to you. You've talked about, I've talked about, how Uber goes about it and all of that. However, for big organizations, I know that some of our listeners this afternoon are wondering, is it that really easy? Especially organizations have different culture. For SeamlessHR, I know you guys are very young, okay, but let's take a typical organization that have about 3 generations. The baby boomers who are still in employment, the millennials who are already hitting 40, 42 right now, okay? And you have the Gen Z who possibly are just 20-something years old. So you have these 3 generations, at work currently. And it brings about a lot of challenges. Okay, there is gap in knowledge, there is cultural differences, and what have you. How do you help organizations to bridge this gap? How do you help organizations to remove this dichotomy of the baby boomers who possibly think differently, I'm in that category, or the Gen Z, or the millennial, where you have some other people. But majorly today, you have the millennial who want to do, the Gen Z who want to do things differently. How can we still ensure that the culture of innovations cut across the 3 generations in an organization?
Yeah, beautiful question. And like, I'm really happy you asked me that question. So beautiful question. And as a matter of context, I was actually interviewing someone who is a baby boomer who wants to join our organization. And one of the questions I asked was that, how do you deal with Gen Zs? Have you worked with Gen Zs before? What was the interaction, and how would the Gen Zs actually describe you? Because it's actually super important, especially I think in every organization. And even if you have an organization that are filled with Gen Zs or Generation X or Z, they eventually get to a level where they will need people who have done it before, people who have experience. They will need some of their mentors to come join the organization. Or even I've seen companies where people on the board actually came to become employees in the organization. And it's super important because, like you said, you have 3 major generations who think differently, who act differently, who, in terms of courage, in terms of innovation, have different risk appetites, if you allow me to say that. So one thing that helps, or that can help to bridge that gap, I think, is majorly the culture of the organization. And that's what we've used to bridge that gap also in SeamlessHR. So if the culture allows innovation, And there's something we do in SeamlessHR, which is some autonomy, which we give to each department or each team, and everyone is allowed to speak. There's candor, there is autonomy, and there is responsibility and initiative, and that breeds innovation across each of the teams. That's one. Then also, so that's one. Then also, if you allow people to fail, but learn from their failure. There's a culture we have, which you call blameless postmortem. So every week, every month, depending on how live the team is, we all meet together and say, okay, where did we fail? What happened last month? What are the failures we had? And we also have like some channels in case you made a mistake, you did something wrong. You don't want somebody else to do the same thing. You also are very open about it. The system encourages you to announce your failure, but just make sure you don't do it again. And announce your failure so that other people in the organization also don't do it again. So that's something else you can that we use in SeamlessHR. Then also the spirit of candor. Everybody can speak, as long as they speak respectfully. And even the word respect, maybe in Africa, in African terms, can be over. Can be too much, where you say sa sa sa. So we call ourselves on the first name basis.
But celebrated.
Yeah, and we've seen innovation come from a 19-year-old. We have people who are 19-year-old, and you've seen innovation come from a 40. And everybody has a voice. Everyone can speak, and everyone can listen. And we are able to bridge that gap where people don't think about the age. People are able to innovate. People are able to question. And if you ask in SeamlessHR, some of my staff are here, people are able to say, Deji, I think you're wrong. I think we should do it this way, that way, this way. I was like, okay, let's look at the pros and cons. Let's see which one is the best. And with that, we are able to choose the best parts. And sometimes we even do A/B testing. So what I mean by that is not just in software, even in processes, like, oh, you think you're wrong, I think you're wrong. Is it possible to run experiments? Can we do these two together and see which one will fail? And let's do like a check, let's measure, let's see the metrics. And with that, you're able to choose and everybody feel they're part of the team, even the Gen Zs and also the baby boomers.
Thank you so much, Deji. I'm going to pause a little bit now and allow our attendees to possibly ask questions if you have any question. If you want to talk, we can give you that opportunity to talk. Just raise your hand, but we encourage that you send your question, via chat. Okay, thank you a lot. Thanks so much. Let me talk about the culture of experimentation, which you and Tope have talked about. In innovation, we talked about failing fast, fail often, or you fail forward, and all sort of buzzword that we have. How can let me ask Andrew that. How do you as a leader, because one of the skill that is expected of a leader is to be able to experiment, to be able to accommodate those who want to experiment, and when they fail, that they are not afraid, to fail. How can we inspire leaders to encourage culture of experimentation, culture of fail fast, fail forward in an organization?
That's a great question. I'm going to come to that in a moment, but there was a really interesting point in that last one, going right back to your question, Doctor, which is this idea of different generations. What we're talking about there, in essence, is the question is diversity a force for creativity or against creativity, right? We're talking about age diversity in that point. And I'd like to say very clearly that diversity, whether it's age diversity, gender diversity, cultural diversity, whatever it happens to be, this is a force that aids and helps creativity, because basically it's like, Hegelian dialectical materialism says that you've got a thesis on one side, one idea, an antithesis on the other side, right? And when you bring them together, you get a synthesis. Now, if you imagine that happening in 3 dimensions, you imagine the explosions and the creativity you get from that. And if you have everything very close together, sharing very many common gender, background, age, traits, actually the capability of those creating big explosions is very, very small. So actually building from a position of diversity, whatever kinds of diversity, the many, many different ones that you have within there, I think that is the thing that gets creativity and gives it that ability. And then to Deji's point, then basically creating that culture that allows failure. And so that comes to your question. As well as kind of co-running the business of B+A and doing some of the consultant work we do at B+A, I'm responsible for quality and innovation. And I believe that quality and innovation go hand in hand. My job is to encourage action and trial and error. So that's action, do stuff, and trial and error. And error is priced in. So, and then once you've done that, again, this has been referred to, you need to bank the learning. For many years, I've said, if you can't bank the money, at least bank the learning, right? If you haven't banked the money and you haven't banked the learning, you've banked nothing, right? But you can always bank the learning. And therefore, creating a culture where trying is rewarded, risk is managed, but priced in, yeah? And failure is learned from. I believe those are the essential ingredients, because you know what you do, and when we recruit, we look for examples of people who've risked themselves for something they believe in and then learned from it. And that's what we encourage in our team, to try stuff. And you said, how do you inculcate that into the culture? Well, actually, honestly, people need to feel it. As a leader, you can say it until you're blue in the face. You can sit there and go, oh, we encourage failure, this, that, and the other, right? But until the moment the person feels it by having something that didn't work and someone going, I'm really glad you tried, that was really good. Let's talk about what you learned, yeah? The failure to learn is a real failure, right? So your point about don't do the same thing again, Deji, right? But basically, it's people need to feel that. They need to, you know, almost have that moment where their heart's in their mouth and they've got to tell the boss something they tried that didn't work out, right? It's at that moment when, as a leader, you sit down and you go, tell me about that. What happened? What did you learn? Yeah. And if that person then does it, you create a virtuous circle where those people are empowered to try things and to communicate what went wrong, what went right, so you can iterate for the better.
Beautiful. Now, I have two questions here. One is to you, Andrew. The other one, I think I'm going to throw that to Tope, and there are two questions actually. Tope and Deji. And Deji in particular, I think you can answer the question from Jennifer. So my question is tailored around a media industry. How can one drive innovation in an organization that doesn't really have resources? Now, do we need resources to become innovative? I think that's the question. Okay. Resources that can aid digitization in an organization. You're talking about media. Okay. The second question you have here, which I believe that Tope can help us handle, is also what are the practical steps to inspire Gen Z to work together and bring innovation ideas to an organization? Okay. So I would like, Deji, can you tackle the first one? Does innovation require a lot of money? Or is innovation about technology, you know, and all of that? Yes.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, that was a very good question. And I think, so there was a stage also in our company where that was the question of, oh, resources. And it's a very good question because it's part of creative leadership, to still be able to deliver innovation, to still be able to lead your team and achieve whatever the company's goal is, especially in the media industry, like you ask, while still being innovative. So, and I think in most organizations, or let me say most people's mind, they think resources is it's a limiting factor. True, resources is part of the factors of innovation. I mean, the factors of production. There are four of them. There's human resources, there's capital, there's the product, and the other ones also. So in creative leadership, we let you sit back and say, what do we want to achieve? What resources do I have at this moment? And instead of just saying, oh, I have limited resources, it could be in cash, but you might be able to get those resources in humans. You might be able to get those resources by partnership. You might be able to get those resources by so for example, I think I was advising a young company that's about to start up, and they were looking for an office. For example, they said, oh, we need to work together because they were just starting up. They need some co-location in terms of what they want to do. They were trying to get an office, and they were like, oh, this office is going to cost us tens of millions of naira for us to build, and we don't have that yet, or we don't have that kind of money to put into that kind of capital expenses. And I had to tell them, okay, what can you do? We have to look for that money. No, forget the money. What can you do? You need somewhere to work, right? Is that go back to the first principle? What actually do you need? Stop over concentrating on the resources or the money, or that you need. What do you need? We need to work together. Are there innovative ways you guys can work together? One of them said, okay, we could do remote, but we need to co-locate. Okay. Are there workstations? Yeah, we could use workstations, but it's also expensive. Okay, one of them now said, okay, maybe we can actually work while challenging their thinking. They said, oh, maybe we can actually work from my friend's office. We just asked him, oh, can we use it downstairs? Can we use a small part of your office, and we just pay you for that part? So that's how creative leadership, that's how innovation can help you achieve your goal with even your limited resources. And as you grow, as you meet your targets, you will see that you get the revenue, you get the confidence, you get the products, or you get the buy-ins in case of media and all that, to be able to acquire those resources. So most of the time, people try to put the cart before the horse and say, oh, I need resources, I need all this money. And in some cases, which I've seen, might also be a pitfall, or where, because you have the resources, you just throw money at everything, and it reduces innovation. It reduces you being able to experiment and fail. It reduces you actually critically thinking, because you just feel, oh, if resources, once I hire Tope, for example, and I get Andrew, my product will work. And most often than not, it's not always like that.
Thank you so much. And I want to add to it that part of what is required of you as a leader is to be creative, even when it comes to sourcing for capital, utilization of capital, and all of that. You must be creative. Otherwise, you'll be throwing money away. So let me go to Tope now. Tope, how can we get this young, bubbling generation, the Generation Z, to work together? Every one of them want to be, entrepreneurial. Everyone they want to do things their way. How do you, in an organization, bring them together?
Thank you very much, Doctor. I think I just want to start from where Andrew left off, like understanding the people that you work with and letting them know, or rewarding ideas rather than punishing failures, right? Something I've discovered in-house is it makes your work easier as a leader if people around you, people that work with you, understand that they have to constantly think, constantly reimagine, constantly reinvent themselves, reinvent like internal practices just to make things work. When I first joined, and over the years working with people, what I've noticed is the culture of just doing what your boss asks you to do, right? So if I'm here and I say, hey, go and do A, they just go do A and then come back with no further input. Something I've done over time is to let them know that me asking you to do something or solve a problem is just a starting point. You have to go deeper than that, understand what is causing the problem and try to fix and go overboard. And try to reward them for trying and not punish them for failing, right? I think in any organization, whether we're working with millennials or working with Gen Zs, that is fundamental. For Gen Zs, right, I think that very young, creative, they grew up with technology. So the first thing would probably be to find a way to encourage ideas and creativity. Most of the organizations today, there are a lot of ideas. Something I would also point out is the difference between a company that succeeds and one that fails could be as simple as one idea, right? And we have a lot of examples around of companies that have failed because they couldn't reinvent themselves. So building that culture and also encouraging them to bring in ideas and rewarding them for it. Creating time for interest. One of the ways I think to get to Gen Z is a lot of team bonding exercises, events that would spur them to like be creative and share ideas openly, and also promote regular learnings, because like, of course, like new generations just want to constantly learn. More importantly, or the most important point here would be a strong leadership, right? So leading by example, right? If people know that you're, like, I was talking to someone yesterday and we were describing someone, we're like, oh, if he's just stuck in his ways, once he comes up with an idea, you can't convince him otherwise. Understanding that that is not how to lead a company, and being open to being wrong is very important. And like, people following you will pick up from that, and then that will impact whether you get quality ideas or not.
Thank you. So I think the challenge to leaders today is, I mean, just let go. Don't hold too tight. If you want to become innovative in your organizations, and innovation is not just tech. It goes beyond that. Any industry must be innovative, whether you are in education, whether you are whether you're in hospital, healthcare, what have you. Everybody have opportunity to be creative. Now, Andrew, there's a nice question for you. You mentioned that we should stop trying to be good.
Yeah.
So if I stop trying to be good, what do you start to do instead? We have just 12 minutes to the end of this program.
It's such a thank you for warning me, but in case I took another 20 minutes to answer that question, because it's such a good one. I tell you what, right? I give you the analogy of exactly, and and again, another book. The book is called Drawing on the Right Side of the Brain by Betty Edwards, and I write that in there. And what she says when you start to draw is your brain is shouting at you the things you learned when you were at school. If you want to draw a nose, just draw it like a kind of line, like this, a line down and a line across. So if you want to draw eyes, it's a little circle with a circle around it. And your head looks like an egg. Draw the egg first, right? And basically what you have to do if you want to stop being good, is stop listening to that inner voice. And you actually have to start to really look and really listen. And the analogy of that actually for creativity is you have to stop assuming. You have to ask yourself the question, what are the assumptions that are getting in the way of me being able to really look and really see? Because good, for me, the analogy is common knowledge, or the right way, or received wisdom, or this sort of thing. These every time get in the way of innovation. What you have to ask yourself is, what is, uncommon knowledge? What is lesser received wisdom, right? All of these kind of things, and you have to go beyond these assumptions and the voices in your mind telling you what is right and what is good, and start really looking and really listening. When we do research at B+A, and we work for people like Samsung and Nike, and we work for all sorts of businesses around the world, and I'll put a link in the chat as well so you can see the kind of stuff we do. One of the things we say to our clients is it's going to be a bit confusing in the middle. And some clients go, what do you mean? And I say, well, it has to be confusing in the middle of research, or we're not looking deep enough. There'll be a moment where the client will say, what have you found? And I'll go, I don't know. It's not making any sense to me at the moment. And they'll go, what do you mean? We've hired you to find some answers. And I go, no, this is a really good place to be, because it means that now we're not just covering known knowns or known unknowns, we're covering unknown unknowns, the things you don't know that you don't even know. You are really innovating and finding new ground. And so that, for me, is how you stop being good.
Thank you so much.
Looking at the edges.
Thank you so much, Andrew. So I have this question for Tope and Deji. Just one more minute. This first one is going to you, Deji, because I know that you guys just raised $10 million. So congratulations. We do hope that in the next few months or thereabout, you're going to raise much more. We're seeing some amazing new entrepreneurs from Africa who are developing innovative projects, combining blockchain, NFTs, and applying them to creative art and culture. What are your thoughts on this development? As a CTO of an organization, what are your thoughts in this regard?
Yeah. Thank you for the compliments, and yeah, and we hope we also get back into raising. To answer the question, yeah, this is actually happening, and personally, I'll speak personally on my thoughts, and I think that it's true. There are a lot of companies coming up, NFT, blockchain, fintech, edutech, agritech, and all this stuff that is coming in. And I think it's a good idea, especially into Africa. And I think it's also helping the economy. And what I would say is that I hope, or I pray that the leaders are listening to webinars like this in terms of creative leadership, in terms of how to manage the company, and how to also manage the organization, manage the team. And most of them are, like it said, like the question said, they're applying this to creative arts and culture. Okay, so maybe if I could get more on that, on okay, how are they being applied to creative, so I can answer the question directly.
Okay.
Technology, or in terms of blockchains and NFT, if the person can give more
perspective,
that might help.
You know, apply them to creative art and culture. So I'm just
okay.
Okay, that's from Mark, actually.
If I may, on this one, actually, it's a question I'm trying to answer, which is the reason I'm coming over, Deji, to Nigeria, Ghana, and Kenya. Basically, one of the things that's interesting about an African context is you have the right level of infrastructural frailty, which means that it's possible to disrupt, and creativity and entrepreneurialism, which are people wanting to do that. And I've seen this happen twice in my career, once with mobile, which leapfrogged over wired mobile, and then once with mobile money, with M-Pesa, and then with Momo and all of those technologies. And actually, the question I'm really interested in, and it sounds like it's a question in your mind as well, is can this happen for blockchain blockchain-enabled technologies? And the question is, where might it happen most? Is it fintech? Is it creativity and the arts? Where is the point where that infrastructural frailty, right, and creativity and entrepreneurship meet?
Oh, okay, yeah. I think thank you for clarifying the question. I think, yeah, you're absolutely right. And my thought is that with the advent of technology coming to Africa and people being allowed and being enabled, like all this funding coming in, I think is allowing people to actually disrupt the market. And in terms of infrastructure frailty, like you said, in terms of people's mindsets, for example, if you look at fintech, for example, people are used to traditional banks. They are used to putting my money. So in case a transfer fail, I need to go to a physical bank. But I think all this innovation in terms of blockchain, NFTs, is allowing people save in banks they can't see. Is allowing people trust in putting their money in a bank they can't see. There's no branch, there's no head office. So it's actually changing culture. It's changing thoughts. There are some markets that are like traditional markets that you can pay using USSD that wasn't happening some years before. So I think this is going to disrupt, and I think the sky is the limit. But maybe because I'm CTO, I fear information security. Because I think most of these people building this stuff are just moving very fast, and they are not looking at data privacy. They are not looking at information architecture. They are not looking so much, at least from those I'm speaking to, they are not looking into cyber securities and things like that. So I'm really worried, that's personally, about how a cyber attack can just spoil most of all these things we're building, which is something I think we need to talk more about in terms of as you're doing NFT, you're doing blockchain, you're doing fintech, you're building all this stuff. Still be very aware of information security, all the necessary data protection, data security rules you need to put in place. Yeah. Thank you, Andrew, for clarifying.
Thank you so much. So that brings me to my last. Thank you, gentlemen. I know that the section is very engaging, but we need to go. That brings me to my last question. That's going to go to Deji. Are there any recent examples of projects, companies, entrepreneurs who have successfully combined innovation, storytelling, and tech?
So I would assume that will go to Tope, right?
Yeah, Tope, you can.
Absolutely.
No, I mean to Tope rather.
Yeah,
Yes.
I figured. So yeah, there are a lot of companies, a lot of entrepreneurs that have combined this successfully. Of course, like you can actually be a success in today's world without combining all of that like effortlessly. I was reading a book recently that would never work, written by one of the co-founders for Netflix, and Mark Randolph, one of the most popular like quotes within Netflix today is, if you're not falling flat on your face, then you're not leaning far ahead enough to take risk, right? Yeah, you can relate to that.
Yeah.
Right? So I think that like building a company on that culture like is something that like from like and there are a lot of products that have been rolled out in Netflix that shows like how innovative they can be, from enabling downloads, from tweaking their business model, like from renting movies to enabling like streaming and all of that. So a lot of companies, I think Netflix is far away. Let me come locally, like talk about Inya Boyeji as an entrepreneur today. From working with Flutterwave to working with Move Africa, a lot of companies. If you've listened to him talk, you can probably Google him, look at some of his talks on TED. You see how good of a storyteller he is, right? And if you work closely with him today, you know that like he's a risk taker and he's somebody that is innovative to a core. Ladi Denalo, the CEO of Move. Like, so I think there are a lot of companies today, and successful companies today, you would have to have that creative leader that would allow people to take risk within the company. I wouldn't be able to like list all the.
I know. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you so much. We're going to close now, but before we do a vote of thanks that my colleague Dr. Adeola is going to handle, do you have any parting words, to the attendees? Just short words.
Listen,
Yes.
This has been a fantastic. Oh, sorry, is that Adeola? Sorry.
No, go ahead, Andrew.
Mine is very simple. Listen, this has been
Yes.
a really high quality conversation. Seriously, the quality of the insights and the input into this, both from the audience and for the panelists, has been really good. So thank you very much for involving me, Adeola and Dr. Olukunle. It's been a real pleasure.
Thank you very much from here.
Thank you so much, Andrew.
Thank you very much. Amazing session. Like I said earlier, I was hoping that it would be a wonderful one, and I wasn't disappointed. Happy to be here. As we go forward, I think let's encourage, like in whatever capacity that we have, innovation, because we can't succeed as companies without that, and also as individuals.
Yeah.
Thank you, Tope.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. Thank you to the speaker. Like, not to reiterate, it's been an amazing session. From the audience, the questions that are being asked, and from the conversation also. And maybe my parting word would be, creative leadership is something we need to keep talking about, not just in organization, in all walks of life, or churches, religion, societies, communities, and co. And I think that's one of the things that can put Africa on the map. We have the resources, we have the eye, and the leadership is something that can come up even in politics. So let's keep talking about it. Let's keep having conversations, and let's keep encouraging people.
Thank you. Okay, over to you, Adeola, please.
All right, thank you so much, everyone. I've learned a lot, I've unlearned, and I believe all of you guys have also done that. Thank you so much, Tope, Andrew, and Deji. And thank you, the host, Olukunle Iyanda. Thank you so much, everyone that have joined us, that have taken time, to ask questions, to join us. Still with the parting word, let's keep thinking out of the box. Let's keep digging deep, unless it's okay to fail at something, but what have you learned from the failure is what is important. I'll see you next month for the next session of another webinar series, and I hope you will join us as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone. Have a lovely evening. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
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 Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Tom.